Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As usual, a very warm welcome to this special Sophia TV program where we discuss some of the philosophies and practices regarding the holy ritual of Hajj. I'm joined today by our respected alim, our scholar, dear Sayyid Ali Raza Rizvi, who inshallah be taking us by the hand, both me and yourself as a family, as we go around the intricacies and stipulations regarding Tawaf Al-Hajj and Tawaf Al-Nisa. So this show in particular is split into two different parts. So without any further delay, a very warm welcome to our dear Sayyid. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you today, Sayyid?
Alhamdulillah.
Dear Sayyid, so as I was mentioning to our viewers, today we were thinking of splitting the show into two small sections. First covering Tawaf Al-Hajj itself, and the second covering Tawaf Al-Nisa. So to get things started, what is this Tawaf Al-Hajj and why is it called as such?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Tawaf is one of the most important, if not the most important part of Hajj. There are traditions, if I'm not mistaken, that say that every masjid has tahiyyat, meaning when you enter a mosque, masjid, then you do 2 rakat prayers to show your respect for the masjid.
Yes.
And the tahiyyat of Kaaba, Masjid al-Haram, is to perform tawaf of Kaaba. And it is a sign of showing your love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the tawaf itself, when we say tawaf of Hajj, which is tawaf ziyarat, so the 13 obligations, and tawaf ziyarat or tawaf Hajj is the main tawaf. Tawaf is basically going around Kaaba anti-clockwise circumambulation, as the planets go around the sun anti-clockwise. So likewise, we have the anti-clockwise people going around Kaaba 7 times, starting from Hajr Aswad and ending at Hajr Aswad.
Okay.
So you go around 7 times. So no matter where you enter, you have to make the intention before you reach, and that's what's called Tawaf Hajj or Tawaf Ziyarat.
Okay.
So main tawaf. So it's 7 rounds, and you have to maintain certain obligations. Like you have to be in the state of wudu, clothing, body should be clean, pure, and all the previous things that we've mentioned in the tawaf of Umrah Tamattu. All the same rules apply for tawaf of Hajj and Tawaf Ziyarat.
Okay. And in this respect, they Sayyid, is this also strongly connected to the sa'i? Like which one comes first, the sa'i first or the tawaf?
The tawaf comes first, and 2 rakats after tawaf are wajib. So it's an obligation to perform 2 rakats prayers behind Maqam Ibrahim. So Maqam Ibrahim should come between you and Kaaba.
Yes.
And then comes sa'i. But sa'i must not be delayed by a day. It must be performed straight after or within a few hours of tawaf and the 2 rakats.
Okay, but is the prayer then essential? What if a person does the tawaf, forgets the prayer and goes straight to the sa'i? Is that allowed?
That's not allowed. Then if he remembers during sa'i that he hasn't performed the prayers, he must come back and must perform the 2 rakat prayers and then go back and restart the sa'i.
Okay, because the prayer is that important to the whole
Yes, it is
ritual.
wajib, it is an obligation.
Okay, and dear Sayyid, if you could just explain for our viewers and myself, what is the concept behind sa'i itself?
The sa'i itself is the remembrance of the practice of Hagar, Hazrat Hajar, the mother of Hazrat Ismail, Nabi Ismail alayhi salam, the wife of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. And when she saw her son, a baby boy, in desire of water in the heat of Mecca, crying and shivering. So she, when you in heat, when you see in the desert, you see a mirage.
Yes.
And that mirage is called sarab in Arabic, sarab. And from distance, when you see, it looks like water. You see that there is so much heat that it seems that from in distance you're seeing water. And that's what she was seeing. So she ran towards Safa, and there was no water. And then she looked towards Marwa, and she ran to get water, and she did that a few times while Nabi Ismail alayhi salam was crying and shivering, and as he was rubbing his feet onto the rock, they started gushed out a spring of water, and that is called Zamzam. So it is a remembrance of Hajra, Salamullah alayha.
Okay. And is there a specific reason why it's 7 times only?
If you look at all the Hajj itself, there are 7, 7 heavens.
Yes.
The rounds are 7. 7 times you walk between, 7 pebbles you hit to the Satans. So it is 7, and that is a number given to us by the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and that's significant. And it has its own importance.
That is quite fascinating when you think about it as a holistic approach, that
Yes.
it's 7 for a reason, perhaps.
Yes.
And perhaps, we might not know fully now, but there's a reason why it's 7.
There is, well, many different scholars have given many different explanations, that days of the week are 7, and your life rotates around 7.
Yes.
So, the weekend and everything, and then there are 7 verses in the Surah Fatiha, and 7 parts of the body you place on the ground in sajda.
Yes.
And 7 times Imam Hussain alayhi salam walked between, walked forward and behind for Ali and al-Asghar alayhi salam. So, the scholars have said that it rotates, our lives rotate around 7.
Okay. Thank you, dear Sayyida, for that insight. And in terms of the sa'i itself, is it possible if a person cannot walk between them, can he get someone else to do it on his behalf?
Yeah, and he can be carried on a wheelchair. It has to be on the ground. You cannot do it on the first floor of the masjid.
Okay.
And can be on a wheelchair. Many people can carry them. And if none of that is possible, then he or she can ask another person to perform the tawaf on their behalf.
Okay. And there's a special section I hear that's green. There's a green light, and men have to walk, is it, or power walk? What's that?
Inside?
Yes.
So that's called harwal. So basically between, so there are green lines, and there are marks where the men have to jog, like lift their feet like camels.
Yes.
That's what the Holy Prophet ﷺ used to lift his feet a bit higher, jog a little during that. You don't have to, it is mustahab.
Okay. And regarding this, dear Sayyid, is it possible then to delay both the tawaf and the sa'i itself, so the Tawaf Al-Hajj and the sa'i itself, after the 12th day of Dhul Hijjah?
Yeah, it is not wajib to perform straight after the 10th or the 10th night or the 11th. So you can delay it for 2 to 3 days, but while you're in Mecca, then you have to, it is wajib to perform. So you can delay it after the obligations of Mina and perform it after the 12th of Dhul Hijjah.
Okay. And so, alhamdulillah, we've covered in brief Tawaf Al-Hajj. Now we come to the second part, which is Tawaf Al-Nisa. Again, why is it called Tawaf Al-Nisa, and why is it different?
Okay, Tawaf Al-Nisa is basically called Tawaf Al-Nisa is basically for spouses. So we said in the previous sessions that once you're in Ihram, the state of Ihram, many things become prohibited to you. Amongst them is husband and wife relationship. And once a person performs the tawaf after the Ihram of Hajj, the Tawaf Al-Nisa, and the 2 rakat prayers of Tawaf Al-Nisa, that's when husband and wife become halal upon each other again. Meaning physical relationship between husband and wife. So that is Tawaf Al-Nisa. That's why it's called Tawaf Al-Nisa, because it's for the spouses. So it is wajib upon both men and women. And the women's tawaf is not called Tawaf Al-Rijal, it's still called Tawaf Al-Nisa. That's the name of that tawaf. And it is again very similar. All the conditions of tawaf that we've previously discussed apply to it. That your left shoulder stays towards Kaaba, and you go around 7 times, starting from Hajr Aswad, ending at Hajr Aswad. And but the intention is different. In the previous tawaf, it was the tawaf or ziyarat of Hajj, and this one is called Tawaf Al-Nisa of the Hajj. And so you go around 7 times, and straight after you can perform 2 rakat prayers. Now for many of the tawaf, so only the wajib tawaf, like Tawaf Hajj or Tawaf Ziyarat, you have to perform the 2 rakats in this place where you're facing Kaaba, and Hajr or Maqam Ibrahim is between you and Kaaba.
Yes.
But the other mustahab tawafs and other tawafs of other, so for them you don't have to pray in that particular location. You can pray anywhere inside Masjid al-Haram. So in Tawaf Al-Nisa as well, you have to perform the 2 rakat prayers in this place, and it is the Tawaf which applies to both men and women to complete their Hajj.
And that's for obviously people with wives or spouses. What if you haven't got a spouse and you're single? Do you have to still perform it?
If you're still single, then you can't, you can get married, but you can't have that relationship until you perform. Even if you are elderly and you think that, well, my spouse is no longer alive and I will now get married, even then it is wajib and you have to perform the Tawaf Al-Nisa and the 2 rakat prayers.
So you can't forego it, it must be still performed?
No, it is an obligation, so it is, yes, it has its own implications, but it is an obligation.
And what happens if a person then, God forbid, again, forgets or doesn't do it, and he comes back to his town in the UK or wherever they may be in the world? What happens then?
Then if they remember in Mecca, then they will have to go back and perform it. If they come back and then they remember, then if they can go back, then they would. And if they can't go back, then they would ask another person in Mecca or someone going to Mecca to perform the Tawaf Al-Nisa on their behalf with the 2 rakat prayers.
Okay, so it can be performed on your behalf
Yes.
if all the means are not there?
Yes.
Okay, and again, like the Tawaf Al-Hajj, can this be delayed as well, or is there like a time frame in which you have to do it?
You must do it after Tawaf Ziyaratul Tarwa, Tawaf of Hajj and the 2 rakats and Sa'i.
Okay.
So it has to be the last of the wajibat obligations of Mecca.
Okay.
And it must be performed. You can still delay it by a day or two after the first Tawaf and Sa'i.
Okay. And regarding this, dear Sayyid, we still haven't forgot about the stoning of the shaitan. When does that fit in all of this? Can I delay that for the 12th and 13th and perform all of these first, or is there like a tartib, a special order?
Now, you have a choice that after the 10th, when you have performed your obligations of the 10th, which are quite long, in the morning you stone the big Satan, and then you, after the Rami, basically, you perform the sacrifice of the animal, and then you shave the head, and after that you are out of ihram. Then you can either on the 10th night come to Mecca and perform the Tawaf, the 2 rakats and Sa'i, and then go back. Because in Mina you have to either spend the first half or the second half of the night. First half night meaning from sunset till midnight, or from midnight till the sunrise. You have to spend in Mina. And then in the morning, 11th and 12th day, you have to stone the 3 Satans, which will probably come to later.
Yep. Yes.
So now you can either perform these on the 11th during the day. You can, after stoning the 3 Satans, you can come to Mecca, perform the Tawaf, the 2 rakats, Sa'i, and then go back. And following day you come back and do Tawaf Al-Nisa and 2 rakats. And that way your obligations of Mecca are performed.
Okay, thank you.
Or you can delay it up until after the 12th.
Okay, so it can be delayed in the
Yes.
situation that you're tired or you feel like
Yes.
doing so. Okay, but it can't be more than that. It can't be like the 13th, 14th, or the 15th.
You can do it after the 12th anytime.
Okay, thank you, dear Sayyid. And regarding this, if a person again is not able to physically, we mentioned for the stoning in previous episodes that you can nominate someone. Again, it's the same for the Tawaf Al-Hajj and the Sa'i and Tawaf Al-Nisa. If a person, God forbid, falls ill after the 10th day, because it's quite intense, again, they can nominate someone to do it on their behalf.
So it is wajib, and if they can in any way delay it and come back when they are better to the haram from the hotel, then it is wajib for them to do it themselves, even if it is delayed, But if they are not in a state in any way, in any condition, because of their health deterioration, then they must appoint another person to perform it on their behalf. But that's only and only if it does not allow, the time does not allow, they have to go back and they are extremely ill, only in that condition.
Okay, thank you once more, dear Sayyid. And on this point, again, some of our youths or people might be thinking in general, why is the Maqam Ibrahim so important in terms of the 2 rakat prayer? Because you mentioned, like for the other mustahab tawafs, you can pray anywhere in the masjid. But for this one, the 2 rakat prayer has to be, for Tawaf Al-Hajj and Nisa, it has to be behind the Maqam.
وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلًّى. The Holy Quran very clearly says that pray at the Maqam Ibrahim. So this is, where Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam stood to build the Kaaba, and then so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given special Hajj is a remembrance of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, Nabi Ismail and Hajra salamullahi alayhim. And they all, so it's their remembrance, and the rituals have to be performed in a way that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed.
Okay, thank you once more. They said, unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the show for today. Thank you once more for your help. They said, we really appreciate it. And to our dear viewers, thank you also for viewing and watching our episode today. The next episode, inshallah, we're going to be visiting Mina once more, because there are some obligations which are still due and still remain. So do not miss this next time. You need to tune in, because it gets quite important in the next episode as well. On behalf of our dear Alim, Sayyid Ali Raza Rizvi, myself and the team here at Safia TV, we would like to thank you for watching. Please remember Asrin Duwas. Inshallah, until next time, take care, stay safe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.